Really excited to have you here. We had the real privilege of visiting Boudewijn's farm here, and my Dutch is not so good, so I'm sure I'm pronouncing your name and the farm wrong. Here we've been really great. We visited about five farms on the visit in May, and I would say I'm not just saying it because it was one of the most inspiring because it was a very different model as well. Or just yeah, because generally we expect it's the farmers and then the farmer grows the food and then looks for the market, whereas they turned it a bit on its head. So yeah, I'll pass it on to you, Buduan, and yeah, look forward to hearing more about what you guys are up to.
Well, first of all, my name is Boudewijn.
Wow.
That's in Dutch, Boudewijn. And in English, it's Baldwin. So that's the Dutch version of Baldwin. Thank you, Garrett, first for coming to my farm, to our farm, and secondly, to ask me to join my stories with you. First question is, did you see the film which Gareth emailed you? Because that would help me to get through my slides a bit quicker. If you didn't, I would suggest to do it after this webinar. And then because my English is not so good as my Dutch. So in the 4 minutes of film, it's in Dutch, but it's subtitled in English, so you can follow it. And then you get a bigger understanding of what we started a few years ago. So first, who am I? I always start by saying I'm married, I'm a father, I have three children. The oldest one is 27, the youngest 19. I'm 58, so I have been traveling on this globe for 58 years and working for, oh, that's too quick, for 30 years or more. I'm a nature and landscape architect. I'm Herenboeren, so the one in the orange jacket in the middle is our king, and next to that, it's me. He visited our farm 3 years ago. It was a real surprise that he wanted to see what we were doing. I'm chairman of the cooperative of the farm, so I'm actually not the farmer himself, but I'm the chairman of the cooperative. And I'm also chairman of a foundation called Creabitat, of which I will be talking later on. So a little recap of our concept. We gathered 200 families, actually it's 220 now, families, and they formed a cooperative. And each household will invest 2,000 euros. So you gain 400,000 euros with that you create the farm, you build the farm. In our concept, the farmer gets a salary. He has a paycheck, and we run a professional business. So he is the professional doing the farming, and we help. So it's not mandatory to do that, but it helps him, and it helps keeping the fee low. We have a long-term contract on the land, and our annual budget is about 250,000 euros per year. That makes that every person pays 10 euros per week, and then he gets all that is written on this slide. So 50 to 60 types of vegetables, potatoes, onions, etc. Fruit, different types of fruit, and it's growing. The variety is growing. Different types of meat, and eggs, 3 per person per week. And we're hoping to become circular one day. It's our goal to get there. Well, we are an independent cooperative, so we produce only food for ourselves and not for a market, so we don't sell. We have a community, and the community is growing with all kinds of initiatives. On the one hand, helping the farmer, on the other hand, educational groups, activity groups, almost every year there are 2 or 3 new groups starting, and the farm is sort of a place where other activities can take place, especially in the period of COVID. There were singing classes outside, etc., etc. So what started as a food community is now growing to be a much bigger community. The initiative started in my hometown in the south of the Netherlands. So we started our first farm in 2016, and now it's a growing movement. The 15th farm is opened this January, and there are 30 or 40 upcoming the next 2-3 years. And we, the National Foundation, has given a loan of 1 million euros to create 300 of these types of farms all over the Netherlands and even in Belgium. So the movement is growing and growing. It's one of the bigger movements starting bottom up in the Netherlands. So what we have, so this is a picture on our land, and this is a picture in one of the first 3 years, where our members come onto the land and with their shopping bags and get the food. 50 types of vegetables. Well, like I said, it's almost 60 or 70 now. This is our orchard with fruit trees. Now we have more fruit trees between where the vegetables grow. There are 3,000, almost 4,000 fruit trees, different types, and it's a lot of wheat. And at first we thought that was not good, but actually it's very good. So it's the system that is getting better and better and better every year. So this is, for me, a really sad picture, because here we can see that the chickens are outside, and we haven't seen them outside for almost a year now, or for over a year, I think, due to what is it? Chicken flu? Is that English? Chicken flu? Bird flu?
Yeah, bird flu.
Bird flu. So they are inside this caravan for over a year now. So they still produce eggs, but the main goal in our system is to have the chickens outside in the orchard, so they can actually help with the fertilization of the trees, and helping us to get the weed down. But now they're inside for over a year. 25 other friends of us, they help on the land, and they are actually the main actors on our farm, the biggest attraction on our farm. Well, I always say 95% of their DNA, or is it ours, is similar to us. So we really connect to this very intelligent animal. And he helps us on the farm. In winter, he helps us on the fields, and still provides us with very tasty meat. So this is what you can get every week. Well, the meat is, we give our members per person 20 kilos of meat per year, and we're still discussing that. So the average Dutchman eats 75 kilos of meat per year. We eat 20. If you want it, you can be a vegetarian, but if you want it, it's 20 kilos. And we are thinking next year to bring that to I think 15 or 16 kilos. So like I told you, we do a lot of other things on the farm, and here are examples of that. We have tours on our farm. Well, Garrett had a special tour, but there are bigger groups getting on our farm, but there are also all types of social gatherings, cooking. There's a group that exchanges all kinds of recipes. So it's a growing community, and it's a learning community that started here. So, and talking about learning, there are all types of organizations connected to Herenboeren to exchange knowledge, to learn, to get back to the knowledge that is in us as a species, but to remember that knowledge again by just doing it, just starting the journey and learning every year, learning every day. Well, that is Herenboeren, what I have been doing the last 12 years. And 2 years ago, I started a new initiative, which is called Chroí. And what we saw on the farm is what I call a lot of collateral benefits. So by focusing on producing food in a healthy way, we saw all kinds of things happening on our farm. Well, I summed up some of it: biodiversity restoration, healthier soil, but also, like I mentioned, more connected people, happiness. One of the benefits was that if you create a group of people, households, over 200 households, there are many talents in that community. So in the economical system nowadays, if you want an expert, you look for one and then you pay him or her. But in our community, all those experts are almost all the time are present in our community. So you can help, the community helps itself with all those talents. That's a collateral benefit I didn't name here, but mentioned here, but that's one of the big benefits I didn't expect when I started this journey, this farm journey 12 years ago. But there are still some things that are, well, not prohibited on our farm. And I call houses is one of them. Other working businesses. There was an IT company who wanted to get stationed on our farm, and well, that's prohibited. It's not allowed on our farm. Schools can visit, but it's not allowed to have a school on our farm because we are a food production company, and so healthy legislation forbids schools to have a school on our farm. Well, etc., etc., etc. So when we saw these two things, so the collateral benefits and these prohibited functions, we were thinking from what would happen if we did do that. So we started it. So I'm sorry, I have some slides that are in Dutch. I try to translate it. Here it says samen toekomst maken, which means making a future together. And Chroí is short for creating habitat. And we are creating habitat, and we are making a DNA book. And that's for all the interested governments and companies to explain what we are really doing with this concept. And first of the things we say is that a home is so much more than a house. So if you want to create a home, you start with the whole circle. And that's the earth, the place you live, the community you live in, the family you have, but actually your own body is also a home where you should be living healthy in your own body. So on all those levels, we want to create a healthier system. And so I love this picture because we are coming from an ego driven system, and many people are talking about we have to get back to an eco-driven system, and I believe it's more seva, which is Sanskrit for serving, and there is always some ego in us or eco in us, but if you do it in a servant way, you will serve not only yourself or your community, you will serve Mother Earth, you will serve the total system. So that's in our DNA, that's planted in our DNA. And if you do that, we see that we address a lot of topics. And all those topics, I don't know how it is in Ireland, but in the Netherlands, all these are separate topics. And with the concept we are creating here, we address them all at once. And so we create, like on the Herenboeren farm, more biodiversity, but we create also accessibility. We create new work, we create a lifelong learning, new schools. We are energy positive. It's a safe environment, etc., etc. So it addresses a lot of well, I always say that we're in a perfect storm right now. So there are so many things happening today that it also creates a lot of possibilities to reconnect as a human species again with Mother Earth and be not only taking care of the ecosystem, but being a part of the ecosystem again, remembering our role in the ecosystem. So we created a concept, and that's really like we started with Herenboeren, which is 20 hectares of land, and then grow the food for a community of 200 households. And we were actually asked by the provincial government, can you create a new concept that is even bigger? And we would love, we liked that question. So in this concept, we transform 200 hectares of agricultural land into 100 hectares of new natural landscape, 80 hectares of regenerative agriculture, and 20 hectares of 400 households, or more specific, 90% is what we would call nature, 10% is living, but actually it is 100% nature, because even the houses we create are bio-based, are circular, modular, etc., etc. And you could say that the 100 hectares of new nature are also for bio-based materials, or even food production. So you can think food forest, agro forestry, it's all possible. We created a group of people. It's now growing and growing with specialists in all types in the fields, community, nature and landscape, living, energy, regenerative agriculture. And they're all creating a pathway to get these communities started. And the first community will start this year. And we did a big analysis of an area in the south of the Netherlands. And we addressed this analysis to the municipality, and they were really enthusiastic about this. And so we translated that into different types of goals on the housing part, on the agricultural part, and restoring the natural environment in that area. And by doing that, addressing nitrogen problems, water system problems, but also creating accessibility to housing. So I don't know how it is in Ireland, but in the Netherlands, it's a real problem for my children to find a house that they can pay. And we are creating a system where it's even one of our goals to create those houses. And so for doing that, we created also a basic system of clustering the communities. 30 to 35 houses together is a small community, and that's part of a bigger community of 400 houses. And we created what we call a Lego block. Is Lego block English? I don't know. A Lego block system, where we started by the idea, if we have 5 Lego blocks, can we build different types of houses, and it was possible. And even the companies we addressed and are now partnering up even created 2 Lego blocks before these 5 Lego blocks. Just so 2 create those 5, and those 5 create all the types of housing in our system. So actually, that creates this new perspective of creating a community where people are reconnected with the area, with the soul, with their roots, and can live a lifelong on that land, have their own food, have their own energy. It's all energy positive, and actually now schools are looking up to get in this system, and now the local government and the national government are looking to get this organized because they believe in this system too. And actually this morning I was talking to an international investor who is in Dubai and said, we want to get this all over the globe. And I'm, well, really enthusiastic about copying this system because I believe we have to copy these types of concepts so we can reconnect with Mother Earth. So just some references of images, how we believe we can create a new living place for communities. I think that's that. Maybe an island would be nice, right?
Cool. So what we did the last time is get
Yeah.
into small breakout groups and have a bit. So I think that works. So we'll go into breakout groups for maybe 5 minutes. You can have a conversation, just debrief, reflect on what came up or any thoughts or comments. So, and just that you can have a chat just to sort of help you reflect. And then if there's any questions you want to bring back. So anyone have a question they'd like to ask?
Do you grow mushrooms?
No, not yet. There is a farm actually doing that. One of our sister farms in the Netherlands is producing mushrooms, and it is a possibility, but it didn't occur on our farm. And actually, it's a question-driven system. So when our community doesn't ask it, we don't do it. But it's waiting for the moment that one of our members is saying, "Oh, why don't we have mushrooms?" Right? So, not yet. That's my answer. Not yet.
Is it okay if I go on to my longer one? Yeah. What happened with the protests in the Netherlands, the farmer protests?
What's the actual question? What happens?
Well, no. Well, basically, I just saw headlines and I heard people mention it, and I haven't actually gotten around to researching it. So I just thought it would be interesting to hear your perspective or your experience there.
Well, many of the farmers in the Netherlands are angry at the system, and so angry at the government. And now, my perspective, the government waited 30 years to get legislation into place to reassure that our children will have a good place to live. There is little natural areas in the Netherlands, so producing the way we are producing is creating lots of ammonia, and that comes from nitrogen, and that comes from the way we hold our cows and pigs. And so to stop supporting that type of agriculture and transform into a new type of agriculture takes time, and the government doesn't have time. So the farmers are forced in a new system, but at the same time they got a lot of loans to create more and bigger stables and sheds and the total system. So they're forced in one system and then at the same time forced in the new system. So that's the part of angry farmers. And actually, I agree. They are they have a right to be angry. They have every right to be angry. And but on the same time, we have to change. We have to change. So I think when you talk to the group, the farmers as a group, they will be really aggressive and active. But if you talk to them individually, they all want to change. They all want to change. There are several they don't. They believe in the old system, but most of them, they want to change. When they come to our farm, they have lots of questions, but at the end they all say, wow, if we could do it this way. Oh, why don't you? Yeah, the system gets in the way. They have loans and they have to pay back the loans, and so they're caught in the system. And so I think the government, the national governance, but also the provincial governance, should help them transform, not stop. And that's what the government is saying now. So if you don't change, then we buy you out. But that's not the right energy to transform. So that's the main reason why the farmers in the Netherlands are angry. And I think they have a big point. So help them transform, and then the majority of them will transform, because farming is in their blood. And farming is one of the things is what is happening there. It's actually what I believe in when you create a community, is that you are reconnecting not only with Mother Earth, but also with your ancestors. And if you do that, you honor your father. But your father was part of the system creating this system. So saying that you transform in a new system is actually saying that your father didn't do it so good for you. So that's actually another problem you create. So saying to your father or to your grandfather that they did a horrible thing is not the way to transform. You have to honor your ancestors and then transform. But that takes a lot of knowledge how to manage this kinds of transitions. And I'm actually asked 3 months ago to work for the national government to help transform into a new system. So but that's a big issue. The biggest transition is in the system.
Yeah, I'm just curious, I suppose, because we're coming from a poverty end of things. I don't know what the situation is like in the Netherlands, but when you were setting up your communities, is there any thought? I mean, I love what you're doing, and I mean, I find all these initiatives really exciting. Have you had any thoughts on how we work so that even those who are probably suffering the most in our societies can actually engage in these kind of projects? Because it always seems to be that when we're thinking about sustainability and climate change and good food and farming practices, that it's actually those people who are always excluded. They just can't get involved. So I'm just wondering if you guys have had any conversations around that and what your thinking is on it.
This is a really difficult topic. Let me try to find the words. We want to include everyone, but not everyone is ready to be included. And that's maybe even for the group you're talking about. We have what we call in the Netherlands, we have the voedselbank, food bank. Do you have a food bank? Oh, okay. So we have the food bank. So what happened on our farm is you may get the food from the farm, but you're not verplicht. You can leave it there, right? So if you don't like Brussels sprouts, leave them on the farm. don't take it at home, leave them on the farm. Because maybe someone else loves it, and if not, the pigs will. So you have food for your pigs. So leave it on the farm. Actually, it's not allowed to take it to your house and then bring back to the farm. It's forbidden. So we thought maybe we could share our leftovers, which is still very good food, to the food bank, which we are doing every week. And the food bank is coming to our farm, gather all which is left over, but also the donations of members. So per household, you can say how many people eat within your household. So in my house, it's 3, but I could take my membership up to 4 and then give 1 to the food bank. So there are members doing that. So that's good. That's the good movement. There is another initiative where, well, the entrance fee of our farm is 2,000 euros, lifelong, and even my children can eat from the farm, so it's only one time, but still it's 2,000 euros, a lot of money, if you have to pay it up front. So we have all kinds of systems to pay it in 3 years or in 4 years, and even had donations of households say, well, I pay an extra 2,000 euros for a family who can't afford the 2,000 euros. So that's also good, I think. But now what actually is happening, when you bring this food to the food bank, it's very good food, but still, like I always say, there is sand on it. And I actually, as a chairman of the board, I say it's my job to put sand on the vegetables. And why? So you pay attention to the food. So get your family together and prepare your meal together. Get the sand off the vegetables. But the families visiting the food bank come from another system. Why isn't the food washed? Why isn't the food in a plastic bag? Why is there no recipe so I can see what I can do with this? What is this for a kind of vegetable? I don't know this, so I won't take this home. So actually the people of the food bank are coming to our farm and leaving their 50% of the vegetables, leaving on the farm because they can't hand it out to families. So to open up and to include them starts by changing that system also, right? So it's poverty and still not willing to connect with local food and local food production. I have a nice example when living in my village here, and there are housings for the social classes in our village, and I know that my income is bigger than theirs. I know, but my children see their bigger cars and bigger television screens in those houses, and they always said when they were little, this is the place where rich people live, because we have a smaller television, we have a smaller car, so actually the attitude to reconnect is more than just being able to share this type of food or this type of living. So it's a long answer to your question, but yes, we want to include them, and it is not as easy as we think and thought. The families who were donated the entrance fee are all gone. Didn't persist. So actually the 2,000 euros even a way of thinking about, will I actually want this, to do this, to be a member of this type of community and food production system, and if you are donated the entrance fee, then that threshold isn't there. So you get in and you get out. Yeah, we want to include everyone, but we don't include everyone yet. Oh, let me add one thing. Different cultures is also something. To reconnect with other cultures in our land is really, well, we are 6 years, 7 years on our way with our farm, and it still didn't, we didn't succeed to include those communities. and we want to, and we had conversations about that, but it's not only by because of having pigs on our farm, for example, but there are all sorts of thresholds which makes that those cultures not getting in the system yet, this system, and we have to learn to address those things too.
Yeah. I just wanted to make a comment, actually, first of all, about what you're saying in terms of the system, the two different systems, making that leap. I find myself like kind of always raising an eyebrow to the irony of, like, say in food banks, just how much chocolate is given out. And like, I understand if you go far back enough in the supply chain, you get to the Ivory Coast and you get to poor children working on these farms often, right? And I often find myself kind of like, I try to make really ethical, informed choices around my food, like quite extreme in comparison to just, you know, one of my friends, any one of them. But then I also am very aware, because I can come across as something called a food snob. You know, so like where you're putting money into your values around food when you're still in a system where people think that it's their right to have the cheapest food, or that there's people starving, so you should be happy that you have this cheap processed food and stuff like that. And it's a really difficult place to navigate. And I often find myself just saying nothing, because when it comes to food, people have very, very concrete opinions and attitudes, very difficult to shift. But anyway, that's not even a question, it's a comment. But I'm going to merge two questions together. The government system that the system that the government would like to move into, is that really the system that you're trying to build? Because I don't see how the corporations and the governments, whether it's the Netherlands or elsewhere, are going to benefit from like a eco-village, self-sustaining system that you're describing. So I'll wrap that into another question, which is that eco-village image that you had up, is that based on permaculture principles? Like, yeah, so like energy and your sewage and water systems and everything, yeah. Yeah, so how does that go into be delivered in a new system whenever it's not really capitalism's friend?
Yeah. Well, asking the question is giving the answer, right? So they are really troubling with this. There are the number of corporations wanting to do this is growing, and growing fast. And in the Netherlands, we see that we have to change, but on the one hand, you still have the monetary system, so you have to grow, otherwise economically you have to grow, otherwise the company goes down. That's really a strange thing, but it's still there. And on the other hand, you see that the governments, by legislation and policies, are still subsidizing the wrong companies. I say wrong companies, and I think it's a matter of time, because the big issues we have to challenge are not the solutions are not the initiative is not coming from the government. They always make legislation after the incidents, not before. So the creativity, the innovation should be from us, the people, and companies and younger people, the younger companies. I see that happening, and of course, it's the way I look at the system, so I see those companies. But actually, I'm now part of a program where the bigger companies in the Netherlands are asked to join in the transformation into what we call a nature inclusive society in 2050, which is what is it? Almost 30 years ahead, but it still gives you a goal to create this transition. And everyone has to be a part of this. And today, no, but maybe tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, there will be more. And 6 years ago, everybody laughed about Herenboeren. Everybody. And now the local government and the provincial government are fighting for Herenboeren. And at the same time, they can't allow Herenboeren because the system hasn't changed yet. And still, they are fighting for us. So we don't have to fight for that. They see an example how we can create a new food production system. People asked us, oh, this is a nice hobby of some households. And we calculated that if every Dutchman would eat from a farm like the ours, you need 35,000 farms in the Netherlands. Well, how many farms do we have? 35,000 farms. And there were 60,000 farms. Actually, the way we provide food, produce food, is creating more jobs. It's creating more jobs. And if you have 35,000 farms, you need 700,000 hectares in the Netherlands. That's less than 1/3 of our green area around cities. So can we provide food for our inhabitants? Yes, we can. We can grow local food. We do it the way we do it. It could be cheaper. You provide, create more jobs. You restore the land, the landscape, biodiversity, and at the same time still can eat. So because I work for governments and my partners within Herenboeren work for governments, we know the language of governments. So we can provide them in this language the tool to say yes to this system change. And what we see now is that they see a problem and they create a lot of money, hand the money over to other governments. They don't have the capacity to create new businesses with that. So there's enough money, but no knowledge or so the numbers, there is a quantitative and qualitative a lack of capacity in the government. So it has to come from us. It has to come from us. We're the society too. Actually, in democracy, we vote them, right? So the whole system is top down, but actually it's, if you see democracy, it's bottom up. The government has to listen. In our country, it's called the second room, second chamber. That's actually voted by us. And they are, what we now say, control the government, but no, that's not true. They choose the government for us. But we swip the whole democracy around, so we have to flip it back again. It's our system, our government, and we can change. And we have the knowledge to do that and the power to do that. And it starts with your choice of picking the right chocolate or no chocolate at all. Or me not drinking milk anymore since today.
Thank you. I'm going to suggest we go to about like 7:15 Irish time, so that's 8:15 your time. So another
That's okay.
8 minutes, 7 minutes. So unless if there's anyone else want to come in there with a question or a comment.
There's a farm in the UK called Ahimsa, and it's a non-slaughter farm. And their cheese is really expensive. It's like £100 for, what is it, a kilo or something? But I find their model really interesting, and I just wish there was a farm like that right beside me. You know, they like people can come and they can meet the cows and pet the cows and milk the cows, and they're really well looked after. And like I'm kind of now getting to the stage where I'm like, we need a food commons, like we need to decommodify food. We need that's like it doesn't make sense that we have the right to like education and water and air, but then food is like,
And how's the farm called?
Ahimsa, Ahisma. It means
Put it into the chat box so people can click onto it.
Yeah. I'll find the website. I think it means like cruelty-free in Sanskrit.
Guilty-free?
Cruelty-free.
Cruelty-free. Okay.
It's an interest, but like what Vandana Shiva was talking about last week again is this question of like, and I know it's one like, how do you make it? It's Louise, it's your question as well. Like, but how do we create alternative systems that aren't just for middle class and elite? And there's also with the balance of, you know, if you give something maybe they don't appreciate. So it's like these tensions. How do we create like, and yeah, the food commons is an interesting one, John.
That was very interesting. I mean, I do think there's something about you know, a buy-in, which is very important. You know, that shows commitment. And if things are just, if people are just handed something, there's no commitment there. So there is a buy-in involved in it, but that can be staggered, I suppose, to support those lower economies or lower incomes. But I think the arguments around there's a whole education piece, isn't there, on why people you know, the systemic reasons why people are, you know, don't eat certain types of food, or you know, poverty is, as you say, but is a really confusing and complicated issue, you know, and comes out of a lot of trauma and you know, things that people are dealing with. So there's all sorts of stuff involved in that. But I mean, it's a good conversation to have, and I'm glad you guys have been engaging with that.
Yeah. Well, the reason my background is not in the Netherlands. It's the Amazon, and I visited the Amazon 4 years ago, and I went there. I was privileged to be invited by Marina Silva, who was a vice president, a candidate for presidency there. When I visited local indigenous tribes, I came across poverty, and it was really interesting because poverty was not there in the tribes. Poverty started when the younger people were getting out of the tribes, getting out of the forest, the jungle, on a boat, and went to Manaus, the city. And then they needed money, but they didn't have a job, they didn't have a house. So, well, the housing system there, you can see where the poverty starts. And I was looking there and said, well, there is no poverty and food and housing in the indigenous tribes were all provided by the community. So when you're old enough, then the community builds a new house for you and your family, coming from the system, from the jungle. The food is there, and the bio-based materials are there, and the knowledge is there. And so actually there are empty houses there waiting for the youngers to come back, because they keep it there, even maintain it there. So poverty, what you're talking about, is indeed a very complex thing. And for me, not being poor, talking about poverty is already really, really difficult. So me saying, well, you can go and the system is accessible for you, doesn't help. And we're still looking for a way to connect with that group of people, because you want it to, but the intrinsic motivation, is that English? So what you feel, it doesn't. Well, I have a motivation why I do this, but it has to come from them, not because I say it's good for them. They have to connect with this and then find out that it's really working for them. And well, we hope that to get this kind of concepts in place, that we, with time, we reconnect with each other, and also with that those groups. That's well, one of the goals I have.
Yeah, I found it really inspiring when we visited your farm in May, and yeah, really inspired again, really rejuvenated here and uplifted. So thank you. And yeah, I'll leave the final words with you. Sorry, I'm struggling with the Dutch pronunciation, but please, you the final words.
Say Boudewijn, so I will
Boudewijn,
understand.
yeah.
Well, thank you for having me. Last thing is, if you want to change the system, start changing the system. So don't talk about it. It's good to have this kind of conversations. But I'm from learning by doing. Let's do it. If we learn the most, if we fail, let's start failing. So in education, we are taught not to fail, and I think we should be learned how to fail, and then encourage that and help everyone who falls back on their feet, and go on. So if you want to have a farm like we have, start having a farm like we have. Start with 5, 6 similar thinking people in your own environment, and start talking about this, and then search for the land. Maybe you know a farmer who wants to give a piece of land, and then start doing it. And if you want to learn more, visit our farm or our website, or give me a call, and I will help. And I've been falling several times the last 6, 7 years, and you will too, but don't be afraid. Just start.
Ooh, awesome. What a conclusion. Awesome. Like that.
Okay. Thank you for having me, Gareth.
Thank you, everybody. So next week it's John D. Lou. And yeah, we'll see you next week.